Hi, folks. My name is Girish Bali, the host for Back to Basics, another Back to Basics for another week. Today, we're going to be talking about self care. We're going to be talking about pillars. We're going to be talking about inner self care. Those are the words that we'll be using today. Oh, yeah, one more word too, wellness. So, those are the words that we'll be using today on this episode. And it's quite amazing. I talked to her, I want to say a month ago, maybe more. I'm not really sure now because I lost count. But there's one thing that I still agree from the last time I spoke with her and today. Amazing person, a great person to chat with, and definitely have a pizza with. And I'll tell you why I say that. So, Julie, how are you? And thanks for coming to Back to Basics. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, Julie. Thank you again for coming here, and it's definitely my honor. Before we get into all the words that I have mentioned earlier in the beginning of the show, what does back to basic mean to you?
Hmm. I think it's really about kind of the nuts and bolts of different aspects and areas of life that, usually it's small, kind of meaningful pieces of information or nuggets of wisdom that can make a huge difference in our lives. And
Hmm.
so I think finding out what those basic knowledge points or pieces of wisdom are and then putting them to action
Hmm.
can really help us progress and evolve in so many different ways.
Yeah. Julie, thank you again for coming here. You know, I asked this question to you when on the calendar, and the answer that I got from you is an interesting forum for people to discuss and learn. And I
Mm,
think that's what you said. So thank you again for explaining your definition of back to basics on that.
absolutely.
So Julie, so let me ask you this: the book that you came out with, uh, can we talk about that if that's okay with you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so ha- I'm gonna ask this question. I usually ask this question to all my authors. Uh, did the title come first, or did the storyline come first?
That's a great question. I would say the storyline came first.
Mhm.
Then I came up with the title, Inner Wealth, but I didn't come up with sort of the subtitle.
Hmm.
And when I came up with that title, it's actually what drove me to start writing the book. So it was
Hmm.
like all of a sudden, this idea, this concept had a name.
Hmm.
And that was what sort of inspired me to write the stories that I wrote.
Hmm.
And and then the subtitle was the hard part, that
Hmm.
how wellness heals, nurtures, and optimizes ultra successful people.
Hmm.
Um, that came sort of at the very end of the
Hmm.
whole process.
Hmm. Yeah, so thank you again for explaining that because there's no right and wrong answer, Julie. I was just asking from a thought process because there's a lot of authors they just go by the title and that's what it's going to be. And along the way when they write the story, then the title kind of tweaks it and changes a little. So so your process is a little different. So thank you again, Julie, for explaining that. You know, how let me step back a little. How did you start this whole thing? I mean, why inner wellness? Is it really that important nowadays, or when did you start this book?
Yes. Well, I really started the work of this book
Mm,
um almost 30 years ago. So
mm,
I started my career off as a clinical social worker and a psychotherapist, and then I really recognized that there were wellness practices, you know mental practices, mindfulness based practices, physical practices, breathwork practices, practices around our relationships, practices around how we feed ourselves that make huge, meaningful differences in our mental health and well being. And so when I realized that, I really started working with extraordinary individuals, amazing organizations. So my business for many many years, which is now called Golden, we really help companies support their employees and their teams in staying mentally and physically healthy and well. And we also do the same thing for these sort of leaders and ultra high performers. And it was the many, many years of experience in working with some of the most extraordinary business people and entertainment personalities, etc., that I really learned about what I call in the book inner wealth, when I really learned about the ingredients that help cultivate a sense of inner well-being, regardless of what our external circumstances might be.
Yeah, so thank you again, Julie, for explaining that. You made it very simple by saying that there's 4 pillars of this ingredient that you have in this book. Okay, now there's a lot of websites and a lot of books, different books. They come up with 10 to 20 complicated wellness pillars, right? And that's really complex. I mean, I'll give you an example. They say eating healthy, exercise, sleep well, avoid alcohol, stay connected, take a tech break. They go on and on and on and on, right? So what is your ingredient? And let's make it simple, if you don't mind. So one by one, if we can just go through that, if that's okay.
Absolutely. So I would say the 4 major ingredients are movement, stillness, connection, and nourishment.
Okay,
So
I was close.
yes, and so really within those pillars, are many different sort of sub pillars or experiences. But if you think about a newborn baby and you think about what a baby needs to thrive, they need movement, they need tummy time or whatever, they need sleep, stillness, rest, they need nourishment, they need plenty of sweet potatoes and avocados or whatever you're feeding them, and they need to be held, they need sort of skin to skin contact, they need to be spoken to. And if all 4 of those things are happening, barring any other major issues or developmental physical illnesses or delays, that baby will thrive, will grow. And adults are really just big babies. And oftentimes as we get older, we forget about the importance of sleep, or we forget about the importance of proper nourishment, or we forget about how vital connection is. And when we start forgetting some of these pillars, we're no different than a cranky baby who didn't sleep enough or eat well. We start to function at sub-optimized levels. We start to feel not as healthy or well. And so yeah, I like to keep it pretty simple, because usually that enables people to kind of look at the landscape of their life and identify sort of where their weakest links are, which pillars need the most support for them.
But Julie, thank you again for explaining that. Why is self-care so important? I mean, is it because it's just too busy life and we tend to forget? I mean, or did COVID help us to stop down a little and step down a little and then understand where we are? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's so many things. It's so many reasons. But, certainly I would say COVID really highlighted for people the importance of taking care of our mental and physical health and well-being, because so many people became incredibly challenged in those areas. And many of our pre-existing coping strategies that maybe kept us in sort of what's called a window of tolerance for our stress went away. So for example, if we would go out to eat or drinks with colleagues or friends on a regular basis, or, would go to see certain shows or do things like that. And all, it sort of contributed to our mental health and well-being. We might not have even realized how much it contributed until it got taken away. And then all of a sudden we had to figure out, well, then how am I going to keep my head above water mentally and emotionally and feel good? And that's when, this concept of self-care and wellness just became really, really important. However, as I mentioned, I've been in this field for 30 years, and I have, let's put it this way. people in organizations who want to perform at a high level,
Hmm.
recognize that if they don't take care of themselves
Hmm.
mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that, other areas of their life become sort of compromised,
Hmm.
whether it's their relationships or their productivity or their creativity. And so it's kind of like, um, just really nurturing our own self so that we have the opportunity to thrive.
Hmm. Yeah. So thank you again, by the way, Julie, for that. You know, this 30 years that you have spent your life understanding the psychoanalysis of people and how they understand. So then you understand, and then you wrote this book. What are the top three? And I know it's such a short list out of the 30 years, but what are the really common questions that usually they ask you?
Hmm. Well, let me think for a moment. Well, I think, in so many of the organizations that we work with a lot of employees,
Mm.
delivering, employee wellness, many of them just really wonderful leaders and in their own right. There's definitely common themes. There's themes around, I would say, sort of digital addiction is a huge one these days. People struggling to kind of unplug and just be in their own skin and find some stillness.
Yeah.
I would say, sleep deprivation, people, which of course is related to sort of this digital addiction that we all have,
Hmm.
but people struggling to support themselves, and get, and get enough sleep. And then I would say, the third is usually, related to finding a sense of work-life balance where they are able to, exercise and spend time in nature and spend enough time with loved ones and manage their stress and still perform, and feel like they're performing at a high level at work.
Hmm.
So I would say
Yeah.
those are sort of those to the top three was sort of managing our digital lives, sleep deprivation, and overall kind of work-life balance. Of course, there's many, many, many others,
Of
but
course. Of course.
those.
I think those are the top three that you have mentioned, and that's what it comes top of your head there. But, you know, it's kind of it's as simple as that, isn't it? Because you're talking about connecting, and you're talking about human connection. You're talking about taking a break from technology world. You're also taking care of your self care. You would think that that would be a simple answer,
Right.
but it seems like it's not, is it? So why why is it that we still complicate things even though that we know the answers? Is it because are we getting lazy day by day, or are we not taking care of ourselves? Because I've been told for many, many years that health is wealth,
Yeah.
right? If taking care of yourself is the wealthiest thing in the world. So what are your thoughts of what I've said so far?
Yeah, I think health is wealth. And I think that, creating, as my book is called, inner wealth is really about having sort of inner resources, instead of just external resources like a lot of money, to have internal resources where, you have an inner abundance to kind of face the challenges that you're facing in your life. But I think it's hard because I think behavior change is hard. I think many of us get stuck in patterns that are based on very, very kind of old ideas or limiting beliefs that we might have,
Hmm.
such as like, I'm only as good as, as I produce at work, or, I'm not enough, so I have to keep going, 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 or nobody will love me if I don't do X, Y, and Z. And those limiting beliefs drive certain behavior patterns. Our nervous system is wired for certain behavior patterns. It's even if we intellectually know that, yes, I need to sleep enough, or yes, I need to spend less time on my device, or yes, I need to spend more time in nature or eat more green vegetables, or whatever it might be. Habits, behavior change is just is always more challenging than we think. And a big part of what my company does is um, help organizations and help employees actually learn how to change certain behaviors. Because again, it's one thing to know what you should do, and it's another thing to actually be able to make those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get into the to the golden side of things also. One last question is that we tend to complicate things, right? And we need to do self care. That you and I are in agreement on that part. But the problem that people they face is that if they're taking care of themselves, it seems like we are considered ego people,
Mm,
selfish people, and those are the words others are using as a negative word.
right.
So how do we face that issue? And this happens with friends, family, and others. So how do we deal with that?
Well, listen, in my experience, when our own cup is filled, when we feel like we have taken care of ourselves, when we've exercised, when we've slept, when we've eaten well, it actually, for healthy people, kind of frees up a lot of energy
Hmm,
to support the people in our lives. It's the old put your own oxygen mask on first before you help
exactly.
others. Like if we're depleted, then we can't be in service, in the world and to our loved ones. And so I would say that people who view self-care as selfish are sort of missing the entire point. That it doesn't mean that we're not deeply interdependent on one another,
That's
that
right.
we are, that the way that we support one another is really what keeps us alive and what makes us human.
That's right.
But but that when we are depleted, we really can't participate in that interdependence in a way that is feeding others and reinforcing our own well-being at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you again, Julie, for explaining that because it seems like there's a lot of people that I know that who's going through that process
Mhm.
and how to get away from that negativity and take care of themselves and I guess be the bad person. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
So it's a very very tough journey that they're going through, but it is a journey that they're going through. So thank you again for Julie for explaining that. And as soon as this is released, I'll let them know about these things. So thank you again for that. You know, Golden. How did that start? Because when I click on your name, you have this website, you have that website, and then your final destination is Golden.
Mhm.
So tell me, is that a journey or is that some changes going in your head that I think Golden is the way to go? What are your thoughts on that?
Golden has been really a project that I've been involved in since 2003. So originally it was called Namaste Wellness for many, many years. We changed the name because we felt that the word golden more accurately reflected where the business had evolved to
Hmm,
most recently. But Golden has been a labor of love where we've delivered wellness support to two groups. We've done a ton of corporate wellness through the years. So, we work with extraordinary organizations, helping them support employee well-being and give their teams opportunities to have shared experiences and build relationships, to build healthy habits, to incorporate really science-backed practices into their lives that will enhance employee productivity and, on an organizational level, drive recruitment and retention and culture and boost morale, et cetera. And the other thing that we've done for many, many years, which again is kind of what informs my book, is worked with high performing leaders, which is obviously
hmm,
related to the work that we've done in organizations in cultivating their own inner wealth and their own, sense of work-life balance and the ability to thrive so that they can stand up as a caring leader
right.
and a healthy human being. And so Golden is an ever evolving, just wonderful business that really supports so many people.
Yeah. So thank you again. And by the way, the name is as simple as that. The way you said it is, hey, it's golden.
That's it.
And that's as simple as that. And thank you again, because I think you're right. Maybe the wellness word, maybe they don't like, maybe they need some other word. And I think your mission kind of changed a little, uh, uh, or has it been the same?
It's primarily been the same. I mean, we have evolved, I would say, but not really changed through the years. So
Mm,
obviously, COVID changed things for our business and the way that we were delivering things to organizations and the needs that organizations had. But we've really always had the same mission, which is to
mm.
help both organizations and individuals incorporate self-care practices that are going to make them healthy and happy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So thank you again, Julie, uh, for explaining all the stuff that you do and all the stuff that you're done for the last 30 years. So God bless you on that part. Now, before you leave today, do you have any last words to all my listeners and my viewers on Back to Basics? And how was your journey on Back to Basics too? So, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, I would say for your listeners, to think about your own lives and to think about where movement shows up, where stillness shows up, where connection and where nourishment shows up, and notice sort of which areas are ripest for some enhancement for you. Maybe you exercise a lot and that's wonderful, but you need more sleep. Or maybe you eat really well, but you could use more movement or more kind of authentic connection with people that you love. And so just take a moment to reflect on those four pillars as they show up in your life. And if there's one that jumps out at you that needs a little more attention, that's a great place to focus and make a really small goal to support yourself in that arena. And lastly, my experience on Back to Basics has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Julie, thank you again for explaining all those beautiful words that you have mentioned and kind words to Back to Basics. So, thank you again, and I'm definitely honored for you being here, and hopefully we'll work again next time on Back to Basics. And God bless. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, guys, we spoke with Julie today, and we talked about the wellness and the four pillars that we talked about. Yes, there are four pillars that she has mentioned, and it's as simple as that. And I mentioned maybe 10. Could you imagine that? As complex as that, and it's as simple as what she said. Now, there's one thing that she did say is focus on those four pillars, which one resonates with you. But listen to your body, whatever resonates with you. And that, I think that's what she's trying to say too. Just listen to your body and listen to your life there. Now, as usual, as always, there is a quote of the day from Back to Basics, and hopefully Julie will like this. And the quote is, "First wealth is health." And that's what we all want, right? Because wealthiest thing in the world is life. And life is all about, in this case, golden. So, guys, as usual, as always, what do I always say at the end of the episode? Everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care. God bless. Keep on commenting on all my episodes, including this one, because it helps me to understand that you guys are listening and giving me all the support and love by giving all this beautiful information and education in a simple way, in a basic way. And there are three things in every episode, including this one, makes it a hit for me, that is, which is the content, the guest, and definitely the host. Guys, take care. God bless. And I will see you next time on Back to Basics. Next week's episode on Back to Basics.
Want you to hide or not feel good enough. And that's, kind of where the anti-diet revolution is going. It's leaning towards joyful movement and enjoyment of activity rather than exercise and grueling fitness and workout plans where it's just, like more, harder, faster, better, stronger.
Sure,
it's more about the ease.
But Jillian, the way we are living right now is obviously this is not the right example, because right